There was this old couple, and they were starting to lose their memory a little bit. Nothing too serious, but they wanted to get checked out. And so they went to the doctor. And the doctor said, "There's nothing wrong with you, but it might be useful if you just write notes to yourself." So he gave them both a little tiny notepad and pencil, and said, like if you're going to go to the shop, write down shop, milk, bread, whatever, and you'll remember, and it'll help you. So they did this, and the rest of the day they were great. They were writing each other notes, they were doing stuff, and there was no problem. So later that evening, they're sat watching TV, and the husband says, "Fancy a bowl of ice cream out the freezer? I think there's some." And the wife said, "Oh yeah, I fancy a bowl of ice cream out the freezer. Write it down though." And he goes, "Oh, I don't need to write it down. 2 bowls of ice cream, it'll be fine." So she goes, "No, right, I want hundreds and thousands on mine, so write it down." He goes, "I'll remember, 2 bowls of ice cream, one with hundreds and thousands. I don't need to write it down." So she goes, "Yeah, but I want some strawberry sauce on as well." He goes, "Okay." She goes, "Write it down." He goes, "I don't need to write it down. Hundreds and thousands strawberry sauce, 2 bowls of ice cream." She goes, "You'll forget." He goes, "I won't. I'm going to go now." And he was a bit annoyed. He went to the kitchen. He was gone ages. She carries on watching TV. Eventually, he comes back into the room with 2 plates of egg and chips. And she goes, "You idiot, I told you to write it down." He goes, "Why?" She goes, "You forgot the salt and vinegar." Police officer pulls up this car, and the man driving, he winds down his window. Police officer looks in and realises there's a load of penguins in the back seat. So he says, "What are you doing with all these penguins?" He says, "They're my penguins." He says, "You shouldn't have penguins." He said, "You should take them to the zoo." He says, "All right, then I will." So he drives off. Next day, the police officer sees this man again, pulls him over, and he's still got a load of penguins in the back seat of his car. He said, "I told you yesterday to take them to the zoo." He said, "I did. They had a great time. Taking them bowling today." Bloke opens his door one morning, and there's a snail there on the doorstep. So he picks up the snail, throws it as far as he can, and shuts the door again. 2 years later, the guy's sat watching TV, and there's a knock at the door, and it's the snail. And the snail says, "What are you that for?" Tried to take Jack into a restaurant a while ago, and they wouldn't let me in because they said no dogs. So I said, "All right," I went away. Came back the next day, I was wearing sunglasses, and the waiter said, "No, I told you no dogs." I said, "It's guide dog." I said, "Guide dogs are allowed in, surely. It says on the door." He says, "How do you know what it says on the door?" I said, "Never mind about that." I said, "He's my guide dog." He said, "That's not a guide dog." He said, "Guide dog's a big Labrador." So I said, "Well, what have they given me?" Sat outside having a cup of coffee outside a cafe one day. This little old lady came up to me, and she says, "It's a nice cup of coffee. Can I take a photo of it?" I said, "Yeah, go on then." And she said, "That sandwich you're eating, that looks nice. Can I take a photo of it?" "Yeah, okay." "Jack, wait." And then she went away. I thought, that's strange. Anyway, the next day I went back to the coffee shop and I sat outside, and this little old lady came back up to me again. She said, "Can I take a photo of your coffee?" I said, "Yeah, go on then." And she said, "Oh, you're having a cake?" I said, "It looks like a nice cake. Can I take a photo of it?" I said, "Yeah, go on then." And the waiter came out to take my plate away. I said, "Who's that little old lady who keeps coming by?" He said, "She takes a photo of me coffee, a photo of me sandwich, and then today she took a photo of me cake." He goes, "Oh, she comes around here all the time. It's Instagram." Husband's getting worried about his wife because he thinks she's losing her hearing, and he doesn't want to upset her. So he goes to the doctor and he says, "Look, I don't want to offend my wife or upset her, cause her any embarrassment, but I think she's losing her hearing because I ask her a question and she doesn't respond. Sometimes it takes her a while to respond." So The doctor goes, well, that's very considerate of you to do it like this. Jack, come here! Oi! I've forgotten where I was now. Oh, so the doctor says, best thing you can do is ask her a question from a distance away, and then if she doesn't respond, move a bit closer, ask her the same question, and keep doing that until she responds. He goes, oh, that's a good idea. Thank you. So later that day, his wife's in the armchair, and he stands at the living room door. And he goes, I was going to get a takeaway tonight. Do you fancy a Indian, Chinese, or a pizza? No answer. So he moves a couple of steps closer. So I was going to get a takeaway tonight. Do you fancy a Chinese, Indian, or pizza? No answer. He goes, oh, this is quite serious. So he moves a bit closer, asks her the same question again. I'm having a takeaway tonight. Do you fancy a Chinese, Indian, or pizza? No answer. So this is terrible. She's deaf as a post. So he goes right up to the armchair, and he says, I'm going to get a takeaway tonight. And the wife turns around and goes, for the 5th time, you deaf old git, I want pizza! Because it was him that was losing his hearing, you see, not her. Went to a bookshop the other day, and I asked where the self-help books were. And the lady behind the counter said, how are you ever going to learn if I tell you? In the jungle, around the watering hole, all the animals are having a swim. And this mouse comes up, and he goes to the elephant. He goes, "Oi, you, get out of the water." So the elephant gets out of the water. He says, "What? There's someone behind me on a bike. I feel like an idiot now." So the mouse goes, "Nothing. Get back in the water." Hang on, I'm going to let this guy go past. I want to pretend I'm having a conversation. Yeah, no, I'm just walking Jack. You alright? No, I'm just walking Jack now. I'm back in a bit. So, anyway, I think I got away with that, didn't you? The mouse, he goes up to the hippopotamus, and he goes, "Oh, you, get out of the water." The hippopotamus gets out of the water and goes, "What?" He goes, "Nothing, get back in." This chimpanzee's watching this mouse from a tree. And the mouse goes to the lion, who's swimming. Do lions swim? I don't know. Anyway, in this joke, lions swim. And the mouse goes, "Oi, get out of the water." The lion gets out of the water, goes, "What?" The mouse goes, "Nothing, get back in." Anyway, this chimpanzee's had enough, so he gets down out of the tree. He goes over to the mouse, picks him up in his hand, and he goes, "Listen, mate, you're going to get yourself into some serious trouble in a minute." He goes, "What's all this about?" So the mouse goes, "I'm just trying to find out who stole my trunks." Can't see him. He is there. Jack, who's that? There was this chimpanzee was walking along one day, and this hyena is lying on the ground, black and blue, been beaten. He's got teeth marks in him and everything. The chimpanzee goes, "What's the matter with you? What happened?" He said, "Oh, every day I walk along here on my way home, and this lion always jumps out, grabs me in its teeth, it throws me around, it throws me up in the air, it bashes me against a tree." He goes, "I'm lucky to get away alive. Every day. Sick of it." So the chimpanzee goes, "Well, what we'll do, when you're coming home tomorrow, I'll follow you, but I'll go over the trees, and then when the lion attacks you, I'll jump down and frighten him off, hit him with a stick or something." He goes, "Oh, would you do that for me?" Chimp goes, "Yeah, of course I would." He goes, "Oh, thank you. Yeah, alright then, I'll meet you here tomorrow." So they shook hands. Nothing inviting, they just shook hands. And the next day the chimpanzee gets up the tree and the hyena starts walking home. And this lion jumps out, grabs the hyena, starts waving it around, chucking it in the air, bashing it against a tree, leaves it there in a heap and runs off. So the chimpanzee comes down from the tree and the hyena goes, "I thought you were going to help me, what happened?" And the chimpanzee goes, "Well, you were laughing so much, I thought you were winning." Hello. Say hello. He hates the camera. We like, what's that guy's name? He used to have a dog on stage with him. Bernie Clifton. I want to say Bernie Clifton, but it doesn't sound right. What's his name? There was a comedian. He had a dog. And the dog was like his double act partner. Can't remember now. Jack, come over here. Jack! Jack, come on, I'm going to grab your lead. Because there's another dog over there. Anyway, this little old lady lives at the top of a tower block and the lifts are broken. She goes to the shop. So she says to the parrot, oh yeah, she's got a parrot. She says to the parrot, I'm going to go to the shop. If anyone knocks at the door, shout, "Who is it?" And then they'll realise that there's someone in. So she goes out to the shop. Half an hour later there's a knock at the door and the parrot shouts, "Who is it?" And the man shouts through the letterbox, "I've come for the rent." The lifts are broken at this tower block and he's just had to come all the way up these stairs. He's absolutely worn out, he's out of breath, his heart's pounding, he's sweating. Knocks on the door again. "Who is it?" I said, "I've come for the rent." No answer. Knocks on the door again. "Who is it?" I said, "I've come for the rent." Anyway, it's too much for him, the stress and climbing up the steps and everything. And he has a heart attack and collapses on the front step. Just then the old lady comes back from the shop. She goes, "Blimey, who's that?" And the parrot shouts, "He's come for the rent." Dad buys his kid a hamster. And he doesn't really like it. So he tries to take it back to the pet shop, and the pet shop says, "Oh, we can't do refunds, returns." He goes, "So what am I going to do then? I've got a hamster, I don't want it." He goes, "Well, what do you put it in the blender and turn it into..." I've got a wasp right here, can you see it? No, you can't get it. He goes, "Put it in the blender, make it into jam." He goes, "You what?" He goes, "Yeah, because it's a delicacy in some countries." He goes, "Really?" Go on then. So he takes the hamster back home, puts it in the blender, adds some sugar and bits, makes it into a jam. Wasp's gone. Heard this joke before. And so the next morning for breakfast, they all try this jam and it tastes awful, it's disgusting. He goes, "I can't believe this is a delicacy in some countries. I think the pet shop owner made it up. And that wasp has just landed on my hand, so I'm going to be very careful." Jam. Nobody likes it. So he throws it out the kitchen window onto the soil. A couple of days later, there's a load of daffodils and roses have grown. He goes, "Oh, they weren't there before." So he rings up the pet shop and goes, "I made that hamster jam, it tasted disgusting. But here's a weird thing. Threw it out the window, landed on the soil, and got a load of roses and daffodils." And the pet shop guy goes, "Well, that's not right. You're supposed to get tulips from hamster jam." Oh, sorry, you had to see that. Jack. Hates being on camera. Woman's pregnant, and she wakes her husband up in the middle of the night because she's got a craving. She wakes him up and she goes, "I've got a craving, I want to eat snails." He goes, "Snails? What do you want to eat snails for?" She goes, "I've got a craving, I can't help it." He goes, "Where am I going to get snails from?" She goes, "Well, there's a French restaurant down the road. Why don't you go there? Be open. Open late." He goes, "Oh, things I do for you." So he gets dressed and he gets dressed and goes to this French restaurant, orders a load of snails, and the barman goes, well, you might as well have a drink while you're here. That's a good idea, actually. So he has a drink. One of his mates walks past the restaurant, so he calls him in, has a drink with him. Anyway, they're drinking, and he's eventually there. He leaves the restaurant with these snails, and it's getting light, and he goes, oh no, I'm in trouble now. So he gets a taxi to the end of the road so he doesn't make any noise. He checks his phone while he's in a taxi. He's got 20 missed calls, countless text messages, where are you? Really angry about this. He goes, oh no, what am I going to do? So he gets to the gate, and as soon as he gets to the gate, he sees the hallway light go on. He goes, oh, here she is. I'm in trouble now. So quickly puts all the snails on the path and stands behind him. As soon as she opens the door, he goes, look, if you lot don't hurry up, I'm going to have to carry you the rest of the way. I had some bad news this morning. The manager of my local pizza restaurant was found dead in the behind the counter, and he was covered in tomato sauce, cheese, bits of ham, pepperoni, jalapeno peppers. Coroner says he tops himself. I went on a mystery tour once. I'm laughing because I've heard this. I went on a mystery tour once on a coach, and everyone on the coach had a sweepstake to guess where we were going. And the driver won 150 quid. Say hello. Doesn't want to say hello. Teacher's got a class in front of her, and she says, right, today's lesson is I'm going to write a saying on a line on the board, and you've got to give me the last word. I'm going to miss a word off. You've got to give me the missing word, and you've got to spell it. So she writes on the blackboard, Old MacDonald had a, and leaves a space. Jack's heard this one. So, and she goes, well, I'll give you a clue. It's an area of land, usually in the countryside, where a man will, or a woman, will breed animals for eggs and milk and meat, and there might be some fields where they'll grow vegetables. There's your clue. So the first kid puts his hand up and says, Miss, it's Old MacDonald had a ranch, R-A-N-C-H. And she goes, well, that's good. Now, it's not the right answer. I appreciate your thinking, though, but thank you for taking part. So the second kid puts her hand up and says, Miss, is it Old MacDonald had a small holding? S-M-A-L-L-H-O-L-D-I-N-G. And the teacher says, no, it's not that. It's not that, I'm afraid. Anyone else want to have a go? So the next kid puts his hand up, or whatever, and says, Miss, it's Old MacDonald had a farm. She goes, well done, now you've got to spell it. He went, E-I-E-I-O. His farm got broken into, and the burglar, he stole a combine harvester and used it as a getaway vehicle. But he lost control of the combine harvester and fell into the machinery, and eventually he was arrested, and now he's out on bail. Jack, come on. I went skiing once, and I was halfway down the mountain and my ski broke. I fell over. Bit embarrassing, bit painful. So there was this little cabin at the bottom of the mountain. So I went in with my ski and I said, oh, my ski's broke. Can you have a look at it? And he says, oh no, I can't. I said, oh, why not? He says, well, I don't know anything about skis, I'm a tobogganist. I said, oh, in that case, give me 20 Benton and edges and a box of matches. This bloke's on a parachute jump. He jumps out the parachute. He doesn't jump out the parachute, he jumps out the plane. and parachute won't open. He's coming down. You can see the ground heading towards him. He's panicking now. He's trying to get his parachute open. All of a sudden, this other bloke starts on the way up. So as he crosses him, he goes, "Excuse me, mate. Do you know anything about parachutes?" He goes, "No." "Do you know anything about gas cookers?" Saw my friend One Arm Dave this morning. He's got one arm. I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "I'm going to change a light bulb." I said, "That won't be easy for you, will it?" He said, "Yeah, it will. I've got a receipt." Bit of a sad day for me today because I've lost my job. I used to be a writer for Thesaurus, but today I was sacked, fired, given my cards, shown the door, disemployed, laid off, let go. I went to this, I got invited to a dinner once at this really posh private club, and the maitre d' wouldn't let me in because I wasn't wearing a tie. So the person who'd invited me said, "Well, why don't you just nip to my car? I think I've got a spare tie in the car." So we went to his car. He looked all over his car. There was no tie, but then he looked in the boot and there was a set of jump leads. So I fashioned a tie out of these jump leads and tried my luck again. So I went back up and the maitre d' said, "Look, I'm sorry, I told you, you can't come in when you're not wearing a tie." I said, "Well, look, I put this on." He goes, "That's not a tie, it's a set of jump leads." I said, "I know, but I've made an effort, haven't I?" He goes, "All right then, you can go in, as long as you don't start anything." I've just walked out of my job at the helium balloon factory. I said to the foreman, "You're not talking to me in that tone of voice." I went to a pet shop a little while ago because I wanted to buy a duck. And the shopkeeper said, "Would you like me to send you the bill?" So I said, "No, just give me the whole duck now." I had some building work done on my house a little while ago, and there was a guy on the roof putting some tiles, roof tiles on. But the guy on the floor was holding the ladder. But the guy on the roof dropped a roof tile and it landed and it sliced off the ear of the man on the floor holding the ladder. Unfortunately, my dog picked up the ear, ran off and buried it in the garden. So we're looking for it. We managed to patch him up, looking for his ear. So I found a freshly dug over bit of the garden. I did a little dig and I found the ear. So I said, "Here you go, mate, I found your ear." He said, "That's not mine, mine's got a pencil behind it." Hello. A mate of mine went on holiday for 2 weeks and he asked me to look after his pet lion. And I said, "A lion? I can't look after a lion." He goes, "Oh, it's alright, it's just like a cat." He said it'll curl up on the sofa and watch, cuddle up, watch TV. It'll I've got some special food for it. It'll go outside for a bit, come back in. I said, he goes, "Literally, it is just like having a cat." So I said, "Well, all right then." He says, "There's one thing though, don't stroke him, don't touch him." I said, "All right, fine." Anyway, this lion was great, just like having a domestic cat. He curled up on the sofa, like he said. He had his cat food, lion food. And about a week in, I thought, "Oh, he's quite domesticated, he's all right." So I went to stroke him. And just as I made contact with his head, he let out this almighty roar and went absolutely crazy, chasing me around the house. I managed to escape, and I'm running down the street. This lion's chasing after me. I thought, "Oh, I'm done for here." Anyway, unfortunately, I tripped up, fell over, landed on the floor. The lion managed to gain right up on me. Just as he got to me, he reached out his paw, touched me, and said, "You're it." Somebody broke into my house last night, stole all my limbo dancing trophies. How low can some people get? Years ago I used to work at the factory that makes M&Ms. My job was on quality control, so I used to stand at a conveyor belt and inspect all the sweets as they came down to make sure that no bad ones got in the bags. And they sacked me because I threw away all the W's. Somebody came around my house last night. He said I'm collecting for the local swimming pool, so I gave him a glass of water. I was walking along the other day and I saw a sign in someone's window that said "talking dog for sale." So I knocked on his door and I said, "You got a talking dog for sale?" He said, "Oh yeah, he's in the other room, go and have a chat with him." So I went in. I said, "Oh yeah, you can talk." He said, "Oh yeah. I said, "So what's your story, what's your pedigree?" He said, "Well, I used to work for NASA because they're always sending animals up into space, but I was able to report back to ground control and tell them my findings and stuff. And then when I retired from being an astronaut, I went on the lecture circuit and toured the English-speaking world talking about space travel." I said, "That's remarkable." I said, "Oh, I'm going to take you." So I went back into the man and I said, "How much do you want for this dog?" He said, "A £5." I said, "A £5?" I said, "He's worth more than that, surely." He said, "Oh, he's an absolute liar and a fantasist." And I told him if he doesn't stop going on about NASA, I'm going to sell him for a £5. Went to the bank the other day and I said, "I need to check my balance." So she pushed me over. I had some sad news today. A friend of mine died. He drowned eating a bowl of muesli because he was dragged in by the currents. Headmaster of the local school phoned me up. He said, "I've got to talk to you because your son's in trouble. He's been telling lies, making stuff up all the time." I said, "Well, he must be good." The headmaster says, "What makes you say that?" I said, "Because I haven't got a son." Policeman knocked on my door. He said, "I've had a report that your dog was chasing someone on a bike." The policeman knocked on my door and said, "I've had a report that your dog is..." I sold some broken speakers on eBay. Terrible feedback. Police knocked on my door and said, "We've had a report that your dog's been chasing someone on a bike." I said it wasn't my dog. The policeman said, "How do you know it wasn't your dog?" I said, "My dog hasn't got a bike." A friend of mine's really ill at the moment, and I know you're not supposed to at the moment, but I went round to see him over the weekend. I took some DVDs, took some books, took some records, took some ready meals. Fortunately, he's that ill he won't notice I'm missing out of his house. I phoned up about doing yoga lessons. I said I want beginners lessons, and the woman on the phone asked how flexible I was. So I said I can't do Tuesdays. I was in the army cadets when I was a kid, and one day I got called in and the sergeant said, "I didn't see you in camouflage class this morning." I said, "Thank you very much." I was playing chess with a mate of mine and he says, "Why don't we make this more interesting?" So I said, "Yeah, let's make it more interesting." So we stopped playing chess. I went for a job interview on a building site once. And the foreman said, "Can you make tea?" I said, "Yeah, I can make tea." He said, "Can you drive a forklift truck?" I said, "Why, how big's your teapot?" He's running off because he's heard this one before. This man runs away from his life to join a monastery. And on his first day, he's in the office with the head monk and he's having a conversation, like an induction. And the head monk says, "Every 10 years, we allow you to break your vow of silence and come in here and speak 2 words to me. So 10 years pass, and the man goes into the head monk. His day has arrived to break his vow of silence, and he says, "Food bad." Walks out. "Jack, what are you doing?" "Watch out, there's some bikes coming. Watch out." I'm just going to pretend I'm having a conversation, because there's people on a bike and I feel silly. "Yeah, I'm just walking, Jack," and then, "You're right, I'll be back home in a minute." Okay. I don't know why I feel so stupid doing this when people are around. Anyway, man runs away from his life and he joins a monastery. I'll start again. And the head monk says to him, "Every 10 years you're allowed to break your vow of silence and come in here and speak 2 words to me." So 10 years pass, and he goes in and he says, "Food bad," and then walks out. Next day, they're all having their food and it's improved. So this new monk, well, not new, he's been there 10 years, he thinks, "Oh." So another 10 years pass, and this monkey now, he knows his way around now. He goes into the office and he says, "Bed uncomfortable." Walks out. Next day, all these new beds get delivered. So he thinks, "Oh." Anyway, in the intervening 10 years, he's getting a bit sick of his life as a monk. So when the day comes for him to finally break that vow of silence again, he goes into the head monk and he says, "I resign." And the head monk has not spoken a word to him for 30 years. He says, "To be honest, I'm quite relieved, because you've done nothing but moan since you got here." I was walking along this very pathway the other day, and this man was coming the other way. He had matted hair, dirt ingrained in his face, big long beard. He had a long coat on, which was a bit shabby, and the elbows were out. His boots were open at the front, so his feet were sticking out, and his trousers were done up with a piece of rope. And he was playing guitar and singing. And as I got closer to him, I could hear him singing, "Dreamer, you know you are a dreamer. Can you put your hands in the air? Oh no." Anyway, I said to him, "Hey, that's Supertramp." And he went, "Oh, that's very kind of you, but my name's Clive." I used to work in the textile industry, and one of my jobs was to make a delivery to a mill up the road, and we all sort of worked together. And I had to make this delivery to the foreman of the mill, whose name was Ted. And I remember one time I got up there and I said to one of the guys, I said, "Oh, is Ted about? I've got a delivery for him." And he said, "Oh no, Ted's out. He's gone for cotton." I said, "Oh, can you sign for this?" He said, "Yeah, he signed for that." And I went. Anyway, the following week I went back, asked to speak to Ted again, and the same guy said, "Oh, you've missed him again. He's gone. He's gone out. He's gone for cotton." I said, "Oh, yeah, sign for this." Anyway, this carried on for a few more weeks, and I was on holiday for a while. And when I came back, got back into my job, and went to the mill to make my delivery. So I said, "Is Ted about?" He said, "Oh mate, you were on holiday, weren't you?" He said, "You were on holiday, weren't you? You won't have found out." He said, "Ted passed away." He said, "You've missed his funeral and everything." I said, "Oh, that's horrible news, come back from my holiday too." I said, "I missed his funeral as well." I said, "Well, where is he buried? I'll take some flowers, and pay my respects." So he gave me directions to the cemetery. I got there, found his gravestone. It said, "Here lies Ted, gone but not for cotton." There's an author that lives near me. He's only got one arm, and I've started doing a little bit of work for him, just helping him out. And when he's typing up his work and he needs a capital letter, he'll ring me and I'll go around and help him. It's shift work. I sold my vacuum cleaner. It was just collecting dust. I took Jack into a pub once and he fell asleep under the table. So I got up to go to the toilet and the barman shouted, "You can't leave that line there." I said, "It's not a line, it's a dog." Husband goes to a works do and he has a few too many to drink and then drives home. And he rings his wife on his way and tells her that he's on his way home. And she says, "You want to be careful, there's been a report on the local radio about some maniac driving the wrong way down a dual carriageway." And he says, "One? There's hundreds of them." Man goes into a pub and he says, "What do you want?" "Oh, you haven't paid your bills, so we're coming round your house to take all your things." Oh, great. I've come out to do a joke and I'm being followed by the bailiffs. Went to the shop the other day to buy some milk. And the shop assistant asked if I wanted it in a bag. I said, "No, that'll be too messy, just leave it in the bottle." Bought a fridge for this girl I fancy as a present. I can't wait to see her face light up when she opens it. I had to go to the doctor because I've got a blocked ear. And the doctor said, "Oh, sit down then." He said, "What ear is it?" I said, 2020. I've got this friend and we're both quite competitive with each other. And we often laugh about how competitive we are. But I laugh more